we didn't reference him as Dr. Z when he was in Manhattan, but nevertheless, he's
Hi again, everybody, and welcome back to the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast presented by Provenzano's Deli and the Charger Athletics Fund. J.W. Stewart, along with Shay and Zinger, our University of New Haven AD. I should say Happy New Year to you, Dr. Z, as we record Season 3, Episode 1 here on January 25th, 2022. How are you?
Well, I'm good. I'm not sure who our producers are that are deciding we're Season 1, 2, or 3. I feel important starting Season 3, and Happy New Year's in the rearview mirror, J-Dub. That is it 2023 already?
Yeah. Well, it's the first time we've seen one another since 2022. Yeah. And we appreciate everybody watching us via all our social media channels. And of course, our podcast is always available on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Dr. Z, I can't think of a better guest to kick off, and I'm using the right term, off Season 3, Episode 1. This is somebody you've wanted to have on the podcast. We've wanted to have on the podcast for a long time.
Absolutely, from day one. But I want to make sure we could do this job really well before we had him on, because Coach Synder is somewhat like a second father to me, and I don't want to mess this up. So, in light of that, you said we haven't seen each other for a while. That's not because I haven't been here. I've been in the office every day.
Yes.
As my coach taught me to be. You're the one.
And good to be back with you here at the BBC, the Bergamy Broadcast Center, here on campus. As we are here in West Haven, joining us from his home in Manhattan, Kansas, is Coach Bill Synder, legendary coach, longtime football coach at KState. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame, as you mentioned, mentor, father figure to you. And he recently wrote a new book, and here's the book right here, My Football Life and the Rest of the Story. And we are very honored today to have Bill Synder join us here in the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. Coach Synder, it's an honor to meet you. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, and it's my pleasure to meet you, J.W. Known your sidekick there for quite some time, fellow that I am so very proud of, and meant really a great deal to our program, and was there, when the program was developing, as you will. And was a major part of it, a big part of it. And I'm awful proud of him and pleased that he's having the success that he is. He's a wonderful young man.
I have him here at the University of New Haven, and you certainly taught him very well. You call him Shay, and very few people do call him Shay. But let's see how the stories match up. Coach Synder, I'll ask you first. What is your first recollection of when you met Shayan?
First time, I just know that we had so much dialogue with each other, and it became apparent to me that he was invested in anything and everything that he felt was significant and important in his life. Impressed by his intelligence, his humility, what seemed to be an intrinsic value system that was highly significant to me.
But it's funny, Coach, because J-Dub asked me that before the program, which wasn't fair. And I sort of had a similar reaction because of all the time we spent together in those early 4 or 5 years when I was your director of ops guy. And then it hit me. It was an interview, which neither one of us probably would think about that often because we moved on to our work lives. I had interviewed with you on a Monday, and my parents came through town. They lived in Hayes, Kansas at the time. And they were coming in town to take me out to lunch because I lived in Des Moines. I'd stayed in Manhattan for the week, and they asked what my plans were. And I said, hold on, let me go call the football office and find out. And I called you, and you said, well, Nick hasn't called you, and we're going to hire you. And I don't think I heard anything else you said as I floated out into the living room where I was and went to dinner with my parents. That's more than you want to know. And I had not thought about that. But J-Dub had my brain going, and I've thanked you many times, I think, for that opportunity, but today again, thank you.
Well, it worked out in our behalf extremely well. I assure you that.
And Coach, we mentioned the book is My Football Life and the Rest of the Story, recently published. Coach, I'm curious. First of all, why did you write the book, and why now? Why did you decide to write and publish this now?
By the name of Scott Fritchen, who authored this book. Was employed here with an outside source that reported and did news, studies, and investigation, etc., on Kansas State athletics, and I think their business was not as lucrative, as the owner believed it should be, and so they released Scott, and he was without a job. And he's a good young fellow, and I wanted to, help him if I could. He didn't ask for it, so I suggested that we, write the book, and he authored it, and requested the publishing company to make an advance payment to him, not to me, but to him, in order to help with his expenses. And they obliged and did so. And so Scott and I met up in our suite, Shane, whenever I could free my time up. And we'd just sit down and talk. From that came chapter after chapter. And the publishing company indicated, a certain word limit. And we went over that and requested more, and went over that and requested more, etc. So the book is probably far larger than what the publishing company really desired to begin with. But I thought Scott did a tremendous job. And during that time, I don't know if you, Shane, had met Kenny Lanou or not. And Kenny is, director of communications for the athletic department. And so during that time, I had contacted Kenny to see about, if anything was available or would become available for Scott, because he, was in need of work, and he was very good at his trade. And before we finished the book, a position became available, and Kenny hired Scott, and he's with the university now and writing, and does a great job with him. So it all worked out fine.
I've never read the biography of somebody that I'm close to or care about. And ironically, I got nervous as I read it. I don't know why. It was, hoping that you were represented in the way that best befit you, and you certainly were. And isn't that interesting that I was nervous, I had anxiety as I read the book, just wanting it to come across the right way. And then I think that Scott did a great job with that. I think my favorite line in there is Sharon, your wife, saying, when you first got married, she had to learn to kind of become a football fan. And now she is certainly a fan of football, but a bigger fan of you. I thought that was the line of the whole book. I think every husband would hope their wife would say something like that about them. So congratulations.
Yeah, well, that's changed a little bit. I had to stay home a little bit more. So now she's more infatuated with football than her husband.
Coach, I don't want to give away too much of the book, because we want people to go out and buy the book. But what lessons might people learn from reading your book?
Well, I don't know if there's any particular lessons that we do discuss. Basically what our philosophical approach was to our program, which to me it's program/life. Or life/program. It's, to me, they were one and the same, learning how to embrace that intrinsic value system. We have those, I think, Shane, when you were there, we had maybe 12 Wildcat goals, and it went to, I don't know what the number was, but continually went up to 16, and it could go to 20 or 40 or 60 very easily. And it's a value system. It's a set of intrinsic values that are that you provide for your children. Both of you do. And I think they're of value to young people, and fortify that value system. And consequently, that was kind of the basis of our program. And we probably spent more time communication with our players about those values maybe than we did the X's and O's. We spent a lot of time. I mean, we were, a program that was virtually around the clock. And there was a period of time in there when we started that, there weren't any significant boundaries in regards to how often you could be with your players. So we spent an awful lot of time. I met with the players, as Shane will attest, virtually every day. My dialogue with them as a team was centered more around that value system and living an appropriate life, doing the right things, being the best person, being the best student, as well as being the best football athlete that you can be, and things that Shane helped us do. And some of the programs he helped us implement were centered around exactly that. And there was no, you could tie it to football, but you couldn't necessarily tie football to, that particular program. And it was my feeling, it's not that it wasn't significant to be a good football program. That was important, but I felt you had to have a program centered around a value system in order to have a quality football program. I don't think you can do it otherwise. You might win a few here and there, but to be a consistent, successful program, I think you have to have that intrinsic value system that's not only appropriate for players, but the parents became invested. And you think about it with young people today and at all times, they become somewhat, for lack of a better term, divorced from their parents. And they've grown up with parents, guiding their life, telling them what to do and how to do it, etc., and expounding on a certain value system. So once they get away to school, there's a sigh of relief, and kind of I'm in a position I can do what I desire to do. And it was important to have someone there, not just a disciplinarian, but somebody that could carry on the promotion of a value system that would help them become successful in their lives. And Shane will attest to this, it's not just about talking about it. That goes in one ear and out the other. It's so much about doing things about it. So we had programs in place to implement each one of those value systems that we could do on a regular basis throughout the course of a year. So, you become a better player by practicing doing the right things. You become a better person by practicing daily doing the right things, et cetera, et cetera. So it was important to have programs in place to practice, becoming committed, to practice becoming disciplined, to practice becoming responsible, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, to practice what those values were.
You were one of the first, and I was lucky enough at a young age to be with you when you came up with this concept. And it was with C. Clyde Jones that we got this done. One was your career placement dinner at the end of the year that was sanctioned by the governor, but the other was the class that you created. And I remember you bringing me into your office, and for the sake of our listeners and JW, the very things you're talking about, I want to reiterate, you put them into practice. You created a class sanctioned by the campus that was a real deal. C. Clyde and I, taught it, and it was the original, what the NCAA now calls life skills. That didn't exist back then. And I would argue to this day, it was more than just life skills. It wasn't just the things they implement. It was the 16 goals, 12, 14, 16, depending on the year. It was it was business principles. It was leadership principles, brought in guest speakers. You were doing that long before the NCAA or anyone else ever had thought about it.
It took such a period of time that we couldn't do it through our football program. There were some rules in place that would have prevented that. So by being able to present that to our faculty, I went to the faculty, had to open it up to the student body. That was one thing. So we did have a few, not many, but a few students outside of football players, but I mandated it for our football players.
Bill Snyder, legendary coach at KState football program. Coach, what is it What's it like to be a college football coach? I think the general public has this kind of romanticized idea of what it is. We only see so much on TV or in the movies. I've heard a story, and I don't know if this is true, but I'll let you confirm it. Did you not eat very much when you were a coach? Is that true?
I didn't tell him that, Coach. That wasn't me.
I found out early in life that, when I eat during the day, it makes me tired. So when I was a young person growing up, I never ate breakfast. And not eating lunch when I began working, I stopped eating lunch because I found out, everybody in the program went to lunch from noon to 1. I mean, that was just pretty standard. There wasn't anybody to bother you. There was nobody coming around knocking on your door and taking up your time. And you had a full hour of total concentration and work on the task at hand. So that worked so well. It wasn't too long after that the same thing took place as far as dinner was concerned. 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, whatever the hours might be. You could be all by yourself and you could get a lot of work done. So I stopped eating dinner. And then I would eat late at night when I would get home, and that'd be, midnight or so. And my wife wasn't about to stay up and cook me dinner. So she'd leave a little something in the refrigerator, and I would, a little contraption that would steam. It was a steamer that could steam vegetables. And so I would put, that was my earmark for health, was to eat vegetables. So I would put the vegetables in that steamer, and it would warm them up, and I would eat vegetables at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and that was my meal. But I didn't get tired during the day, so that was rewarding in that respect. Now it's such a habit that I eat a little bit more now, and I do eat an earlier dinner, but I still don't eat breakfast, and I still don't eat lunch.
Working one meal a day. It's a thing. It's called OMAD, and it's part of the intermittent fasting trend. I told Coach he invented that way back when and didn't know it.
We are. I wish we had more time with you, Coach. I know you're on a tight schedule today. We are very, very grateful for your time. I'll give you whatever you want to talk about to our viewers and listeners. I'll give you the final word. We give all our guests the final word. What parting words of wisdom do you have for our audience today?
Well, I don't carry much wisdom with me anymore, but I would, once again share with you that I have such great admiration for Shane and what he's done as a person, number one, as a father, number two, as a husband, certainly as a workmate. He was really special and a great asset in our program and a great help to me. I admire him a great deal. I'm awful proud of him. I follow his career, and he has learned to manage, all facets of his life. And even though he stays awful busy as athletic director, he still is a caring, quality husband and spouse as well. So I admire him a great deal.
Yeah.
Send me the check to the
in the mail.
The book is My Football Life and the Rest of the Story by Bill Synder, the legendary coach at Kansas State and college football Hall of Famer, and really a Hall of Famer in life as well. And Coach Synder, again, thanks for joining us here in the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. It was great to finally meet you, and I hope to meet you in person someday. If your travels ever bring you over here to New England, we'd love to see you here on our campus at the University of New Haven.
Well, I'd love to meet you too. I appreciate you a great deal, and thank you for your help with Shane, and God bless you both.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. God bless you and your family. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bill Synder in a nutshell. And that was 25 minutes, and we could have gone twice that long. What's it mean to you to hear him say those words?
Probably a little emotional right now. I would say, and I would have said this beforehand, if you think having Coach on here, we're going to talk X's and O's, that's not what he does outside of the field and the classrooms, the football classrooms. this is who he is, and this is his purpose in life, is to teach young men and others for that matter. And I would say in my own personal life, I often wonder where I would be or where my family would be had we not crossed paths. Again, next to my immediate family, both my original one and the one I have with Pam now, there's nothing been more significant in my life that altered my life path than working for Coach. And really, he caught me at just that time in my life at the age of 22, 23, up until I was about 27, 28. And then I came back for a second tour of duty as an administrator, which was equally as important. But, the key was him getting me at that early juncture in my life when Pam and I got married, and it was almost as if my own parents had handed me off, and the values were so similar that it just went from there. But all of us that served with him and for him at that time and ongoing, it changed all of our lives. The jobs and careers that came from that are just, I could go on and on, from the Bobby Stoops and the Nick Corteros and the Dana Dimmels and then, Jim Levitts of the world and many, many, many others altered our life paths tremendously. And that's the coaches.
I think, as we said, Coach Snyder is a Hall of Famer in life. And I think what stood out to me in that interview is, I asked him about the book. Why did you write it? He didn't write it for himself. He wrote it for somebody who was out of work and needed a job. Yeah. I think that's Coach Snyder in a nutshell. Is that right, Z?
Absolutely.
Go get the book, My Football Life and the Rest of the Story. We look forward to having Coach Snyder on again at some point in time. Again, 25 minutes just is not good enough. But it was a great start, and we wish Coach Snyder and his family the best. Z, as always, it's a pleasure. There are very few people who call you Shay, and he's one of them.
That's right.
It's weird to hear somebody say it.
Yeah.
But I imagine it would be him and your mom and your dad, right? Your family.
Some teachers.
Teachers.
Yeah.
Well, for Dr. Z and for our producer, Broccoli Rob Thompson, for our executive producer, John Mays, I'm J.W. Stewart. Thanks for watching the Dr. Z and J-Dub podcast. Season 3 is underway. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Send me the check to the
In the mail.